Hey everyone, so I just wanted to come on and talk about my husband and I's miscarriage experience. This might be weird for some people or too much to hear for some people, so, just a trigger warning now. I'm going to be talking in depth about our experience. So, my husband and I have had two miscarriages, and the first miscarriage was completely different from the second one. So, our second miscarriage involved a twin, so we never got to see that baby, hold that baby. We never went through the loss of an entire pregnancy, just that twin. The first one was very traumatic. So I just want to say from the start, I already knew something was wrong with this pregnancy from our very first ultrasound. We went in, I was supposed to be 8 weeks at that point, and a baby was measuring 6 weeks. She couldn't actually find anything on my external ultrasound, so she had to do an internal ultrasound to be able to see the baby. So baby was measuring 6 weeks. I was like 2.5 weeks behind where it was supposed to be at based off of my last period, but the doctor saw a heartbeat, so she felt like everything was fine. She thought that I had miscalculated my period, which I assured her I did not. Like, I knew exactly when I had my period. I knew exactly the day that I took my pregnancy test. She questioned me horribly. It was just a weird experience. I didn't like it. At the end of the appointment, she just kind of left the room. I had a lot of questions. It didn't feel right to me. My pregnancy should not be 2.5 weeks behind, and I knew that. So when the discharge nurse came in to kind of like just give me paperwork of what I can and cannot do and eat, blah, 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 the normal stuff of pregnancy, I asked her why I was measuring 2.5 weeks behind. If she knew anything about that, could give me more information. Of course, she told me it can be normal, and 2.5 weeks, I knew it wasn't normal, but whatever. So we were pregnant for about another 2 weeks before I started spotting, but it wasn't fresh blood, it wasn't pink, it wasn't red, it was a brown, it was old blood. Went in to the emergency room because, well, I'm spotting and I'm like 8 weeks pregnant, and wanted to make sure everything was okay. Did an ultrasound, baby was fine. Baby was measuring normal, baby had a heartbeat. They told me that it's brown, so it's old blood, and it's probably nothing. Again, I knew something was wrong. I just knew something was wrong. So about a week after that, the spotting had went away, but I noticed that my breasts were not tender anymore, and I noticed that my lower back didn't hurt anymore. Just all the signs of feeling pregnant really weren't there. Went in for another ultrasound because my spotting came back and baby no longer had a heartbeat. So we went home that night. It was a very silent car ride home. We laid in bed. My husband hugged my belly and talked to the baby. And I talked to the baby and, all that. 2 days later, I went in with my actual OB and not the emergency room. Did another ultrasound to completely confirm that baby still did not have a heartbeat. And at that point, I wasn't bleeding, like nothing, was out of the ordinary per se. And of course, she confirmed baby still didn't have a heartbeat. And she gave me options. I could take a pill to induce the expulsion of the pregnancy, or I could wait for it to happen on my own for 2 weeks. And if it didn't happen on its own, then I would go in for a D&C. I chose to just let it happen on its own. I didn't want to take the pills, and I definitely didn't want a D&C, but I just kind of wanted it to happen on its own. So once we found out that there was no going back, like the baby was definitely gone, this pregnancy was not going to continue, it wasn't healthy, I prayed to God to please just let me see my baby. Please just let me hold and see my baby. I just want to see my baby. Well, later that evening, my appointment was in the morning. Later that evening, I started having some cramping in my lower back and my hips. I went upstairs to the bathroom right away. I just had a feeling, and I was spotting fresh blood. This was not old blood this time. I was spotting bright red blood. So I put a pad on. I told myself, all right, this is it. I took my husband to work. He worked at a grocery store at the time, and I walked through one of the lines after I dropped him off just because I was buying something for dinner. And I distinctly remember just a really horrible feeling. The cashier asked me, "How you doing today?" She was really friendly and bright and cheerful about it. And I hardly muddled this out, but like almost it's like I wasn't in my body and someone else was speaking for me, but I just said, "Oh, I'm doing good." And it just felt like it completely killed me inside to say that, as I was actively bleeding and going through a miscarriage. I started cooking dinner, and then I started really cramping, and the cramping wasn't in my back or my hips anymore. It was now the front, lower tummy area, middle tummy area. I called my mom and I called my older sister and I let them know that, hey, it's happening. I'm miscarrying, just to give them a heads up. By the time I was done cooking dinner, my husband only worked a 5-hour shift, so it wasn't a very long shift. And I picked him up, and by that time my cramps were starting to get pretty strong. I told him what was happening. We sat down and we ate our dinner, and then I laid down on the couch to try to work through what was now turning more into contractions. And we turned a movie on and we sat there and watched a movie. After a while, I was starting to bleed pretty heavy, so I had to change my pad, of course. My husband and I still continued we stayed downstairs. The bathroom was upstairs. We stayed downstairs for quite some time. And then I started noticing that they were coming in waves. So they weren't cramps anymore, but my stomach I could distinctly feel the pulling and tightening and then the release. And it would come in waves and obviously contractions now. And again, I was 9 weeks. My doctor did warn me that a lot of women experience labor contractions during first trimester miscarriages, but for whatever reason, for me, that didn't make sense, and I just really didn't expect it to happen to me. They started getting intense. It was around 1:15 in the morning at this point, so it was to the point where I could hardly breathe anymore. I could hardly move, and something told me to go upstairs to the bathroom. Barely made it to the steps, finally made it to the steps. I don't know how long that took me. But I started crawling my way up the steps. I couldn't walk anymore. About halfway up the steps, I had to stop and I had to just lay on the steps. I was crying, I was screaming, but really trying not to scream. The pain was intense, unlike anything I've ever felt before besides when I've given birth. I finally made it to the top of the steps, crawled into the bathroom, and kneeled on the floor in front of the sink and gripped the sink and screamed. And the door was shut, and I was like that for maybe 10 minutes. My husband, bless his heart, we lived in a townhouse apartment type deal, and the walls were very thin. So my husband gently opened the door and was like, "Hey, sweetie, can you quiet down?" No, no. He was worried that the neighbors were gonna hear and call the police or something of that nature. Luckily, the neighbors did not call the police. I don't know if they heard. I don't know how they couldn't have heard. I'm not sure, but no police were called. So anyway, at that point, I got a break. I got like a 30-second break in there where it didn't feel as painful. I decided to sit on the toilet. It just felt right to sit on the toilet. Pulled down my pants as I was sitting on the toilet. Maybe for 5 minutes, I felt something big coming out. So I thought, well, it might be the baby. So I cupped my hands in between my legs underneath, and I gave a couple little pushes until it all came out into my hand. And I just kind of rolled it around. I was taking a look and seeing exactly what it was. And as soon as I rolled it around, that is when I saw the baby. I knew it was the baby because there was a head, there were little eyes, they were little black dots on both sides. There were arms, legs, and I remember his spine was showing, the outline of the spine was showing on the back, and I saw little ribs, outline of ribs on both the sides. At that point, I was gonna throw up. I felt it coming. And so I told my husband to come into the bathroom, and I said, "Do you want to see your baby?" And he looked white as a ghost. He just looked like he did not know what the hell I was talking about. I don't think he expected to see the baby, especially because I was 9 weeks, and it was really a hit or miss if that was going to happen. And with him not saying anything and me about to throw up, I told him, "I need you to take the baby." And he just like quickly grabbed paper towel and had me put the baby into his hands in the paper towel. The bathtub was right next to me on my left side, and I leaned over while I was still sitting on the toilet and threw up. I threw up all of my dinner. I still will not eat chicken pot pie, store-bought chicken pot pie till this day. That is what I ate while I was in labor downstairs, and I will just never eat that again. So once I was done throwing up, I decided that I would try to get up off the toilet. I was wondering why it still hurt. It still hurts so bad. And I was exhausted. I fell to my knees and I laid on the floor. I literally laid on the floor. My pants were not even pulled up. For whatever reason, I know that I did not just have a beautiful birth. I know that I did not just give birth to a full-term, healthy, crying baby. But for whatever reason, I wondered, why does it still hurt? Because after you have a baby, it's not supposed to hurt anymore. I even called my doctor, and one of the doctors on call, and she answered the phone. She said, "Hi, how can I help you tonight? You doing okay?" And I said, I just had a miscarriage, and I just passed the baby." And she said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, honey." And I said, "It's okay, but when does the pain go away?" And she said, "It just has to run its course, sweetie." And there was nothing that she could do. She said you could try to take Tylenol to take the edge off of the pain, but there was really nothing they could do. So obviously later I came to the conclusion the pain did not go away because I did not have that lovely feeling of laying that baby on your chest and hearing them cry and smelling them and just everything beautiful that comes with after you give birth. I'm laying in bed. My husband comes in. We were really young. I don't like to live with regrets, but this next part, unfortunately, is something that I have not yet been able to work past. So my husband came in and he said, "What do you want me to do with the baby?" Originally, I thought I had more time for this to happen because the doctor said, like, it could take up to 2 weeks. So I originally wanted to get a large flower pot and bury the baby in the flower pot with a beautiful flower that comes back every year. But that didn't happen. So I said, well, let me see the baby again. So I went into the bathroom where he had the baby on the sink, on the paper towel still. We gave the baby another look. We held the baby again. And then we gently placed the baby into the toilet and flushed. So we flushed our baby down the toilet. That is not what I wanted to do. I was so tired and I was in so much pain and shock. I was so young. I was 18 years old. My husband was 19. And I think in that moment, we just did not think clearly. If I could go back in time, I would change that completely. I would have spent more time with my baby. And I would have taken pictures just for me and my husband to see, not for anyone else. But I would have done that. Everybody's miscarriage story is different. The point of me telling this one is because when people think about miscarriage, they don't often, especially if they've never been through it, they don't often think about everything that happens during that miscarriage. It is very traumatic. That was 9 years ago, and I don't cry about it every day anymore. I haven't in a long time, but if I have to talk about it, I still hurt just as bad, and I still cry. I think it's something that just unfortunately lives with you for the rest of your life. But I just wanted to share the reality of miscarriage, especially first trimester miscarriage. It's not just an easy, for everyone, it's not just an easy thing where you don't feel any pain or you don't see anything. It can be very visual and very traumatic for someone.